Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyantimirasya Gyanandamashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vacharam pangam langyate girem yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurudinataranam Paramanandam. Thank you very much for joining in today's concluding session on Nectar of Devotion. So our plan is that we will do the presentations for the last set of chapters, and after that we will take a break. After that we'll take a break from the presentation and do any question answers, and that will essentially be would be our conclusion for the Nectar Devotion. And yes, I will also send out the slides for chapter 14 for Nectar Devotion. I got a reminder from Chaitanya Prabhu. Thank you so much. So without further ado, I will now turn it over to the group to make the presentation. Okay, so this is group 3 talking on Bhava Bhakti.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. This is group 3. We are continuing with chapter 18. So in the chapter 18, it's about character of one in ecstatic love. So it continues basically just to give a quick recap. The group, I think group 2 explained it very well last week about what is ecstatic love, which is a state of Bhava Bhakti, and the process by which we achieve that, and what is that? That is basically elevated to a transcendental stage, which is beyond the material modes of nature. And this is done by executing by the process of executing regulated devotional service. In this state, the heart gets soft and one's heart becomes illuminated like sun. A devotee is purified like sun. From the pure heart, there is a diffusion of ecstatic love. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve Lord in his ecstatic love. So essentially, the devotee who is in this state is an Uttamadhikari, and he has perfected, or he is in close to being perfect in his devotional state. And such a devotee has no agitation from material afflictions. So all he is interested is basically in serving Radha and Krishna. So in the Nectar of Devotion, in this chapter, Prabhupada kind of explains Rupa Goswami's the 9 characteristics of the person who is in ecstatic love for Krishna, and our team will kind of go through all of that and in few of these slides, and will conclude with the presentation there. So the first one is basically utilization of time, or avyartha kalatvam, which refers to constant engagement in devotional service. The devotee always wants to serve Krishna 24/7, and he does want to do that without deviation. The next one is Shanti, which is perseverance. Further explanation is given by Prabhupada as remaining tolerant and patient even amid disturbance. The third one is Virakti, or detachment, complete indifference to the objects of sense gratification. Pridelessness, or manashunyata, is mentioned as the fourth characteristic, to feel humble, even though even though one is extremely elevated. These devotees they don't have any ounce of pride there. Asha bandha, or hoping against hope. So basically, to possess the firm faith that Krishna will deliver them to highest perfection. Samutkantha, or intense eagerness to achieve pure loving service. Namagane Sadaruchi, constant attraction to the chanting of Mahamantra. And Asakti Tad Gunya Kahiyani, or addiction to glorifying Krishna's quality. And the last one is love for living in Lord's Dham, that is Mathura, Vrindavan, or Dwarka, which is Priti Tad Vasati Stale. So, the first two characteristics can be explained. The utilization of time. Here, the unalloyed devotee is always engaging in service of Krishna. The service includes engaging in reciting prayers. In this picture, we can see that the devotee is actually praying to Krishna and Radha in front of the altar. So essentially, he is engaging himself and his mind in the prayers. With the mind, he is always thinking of Krishna, and with the body, he is offering obeisances to Krishna or engaging in other services. During activities, he's shedding tears, and the whole life is engaged in service of the Lord without wasting a moment. So one example that comes into mind is King Ambarish. So as Bhagavatam mentions, King Ambarish used all his senses, his mind, in the service of the Lord. Perseverance is the next characteristics. A person who is undisturbed even in the presence of disturbances. He is reserved, he is perseverant. He remains patient even in the final stages of the life. His mind is undisturbed. And the example that comes into mind, or that has been mentioned, is King Parikshit. So he was cursed to die in 7 days, but he was undisturbed. He had the power to reverse the curse, but he did not do that. He took that as an opportunity to complete his pastimes on this earth and go back home. And not only he did that, he took that opportunity, asked Brahmanas what should be the role of a person in that situation. And he, for 7 days, 7 nights, he continuously listened to Bhagavad Gita. So with that, I will hand over to
I'll take over. Venugopal.
Venugopal.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Rajesh, thank you. I hope you will continue the slides.
Yes, bro.
Okay, thank you. So, continuing, the next characteristic is detachment. Here, for a devotee in ecstatic love in bhava stage, the senses are no longer attracted by material desires. So, although there is always sense enjoyment is natural for the senses to desire the sense enjoyment. Here, Prabhupada says, when devotee develops transcendental love, his senses are no longer attracted. So this type of detachment means not artificially keeping aloof from attachments. Although it is recommended that in the initial stage or the neophyte stage, one does practice keeping aloof from these sense enjoyment or attachments. One in bhava stage doesn't have to do that and is naturally detached, and even in presence of material attachments. It's not only when one doesn't have opportunity for sense enjoyment, but even when all such opportunities are present, being unattracted to those sense enjoyment facilities is characteristic of one in bhava. The example given is King Bharata, who had the entire world, and at the time, the example from Bhagavatam is quoted. When time came, he gave up all attachments for family, children, and kingdom, and it's given that he was so fond of Krishna that he was in the bhava stage that giving up was as simple as walking away from undesired stool. So that's the analogy given here. So moving on to pridelessness, the next characteristic. Here, in spite of pure realization, one is not proud of his position. Although the devotee in the bhava stage possesses all qualities that are symptomatic of having attained the highest realization, here he continues to stay humble and even for towards all his detractors. And so the example from Padma Purana is quoted here of King Bhagirath, who was emperor above all the kings. Yet, because of his achieving ecstatic love, he became a mendicant and went out begging even to the homes of his political enemies and untouchables. So he was so humble, he respectfully bowed down before them. So another example, of course, when he was doing this, it was not that he received favorable reciprocation. There was so much of bad ill treatment, not because he was going towards those who didn't like him, but still he tolerated such insults for the sake of Krishna. And so another example given by Prabhupada is of landlord in Calcutta, Lal Babu, who he was such a great landholder in entire Calcutta, but he became a Vrindavan Vasi, became a Vaishnava and a Vrindavan Vasi, and he went begging door to door, even to the homes of any of his enemies. So begging, Prabhupada says, involves ready to be insulted by persons whom one has come to. So even if person drives one away, or not just drives one away, but insults, one is ready to tolerate it. That is quality of pridelessness in our own Prabhupada's process, what he has given us, like I was just trying to relate in the book distribution, it is Prabhupada has placed so much importance on that. He's trying to, that is a way to develop this type of pridelessness, or at least get a glimpse of what it is. When we do this, go out, it is some form of begging, and we do get a glimpse of how it is to lose tolerance, and if we the test real we are tested on the when we go out. So also we can see examples of Chaitanya Leela, how Nityanand Prabhu and Haridas Thakur went door to door begging, requesting people to take the names of the Lord. So this is an example of pridelessness. Moving on to the next characteristic, great hope, the Asha Bandha, it's hope against hope. Here, it's described even despite all sorts of difficulties. One is having strong conviction that Krishna will bestow his mercy, and he will receive the favor of Krishna in all circumstances. If one is able to retain this hope by doing his part in all circumstances and hoping for and having the strong conviction that Krishna will do his part. So that is described as Asha Bandha. The example is given of Sri Rupa Goswami's prayer, beautiful prayer. Just quickly read out the translation. He says, I have no love for Krishna, nor for the causes of developing love of Krishna, namely hearing and chanting, and the process of Bhakti Yoga, by which one is always thinking of Krishna and fixing his lotus feet in the heart, is also lacking in me. As far as philosophical knowledge or pious works are concerned, I don't see any opportunity for me to execute such activities. But above all, I am not even born of a nice family. Therefore, I must simply pray to you, Gopijana Vallabha, Krishna, maintainer and beloved of the gopis. I simply wish and hope that some way or other I may be able to approach your lotus feet, and this hope is giving me pain because I think myself quite incompetent to approach the transcendental goal of life. So the purport Prabhupada explains is one should continue to hope against hope that some way or other one will be able to approach the lotus feet of Supreme Lord by continuing on the process. Moving on, the next characteristic is of eagerness or samutkanta, complete eagerness to achieve the desired success. Here, the desired success being success in devotional service. Here, Rupa Goswami explains that always to achieve something, there is some value one has to pay before possessing it, and most valuable thing in the Vedic scriptures is of attaining Krishna consciousness, and to achieve that, the price one has to pay is to develop intense eagerness for achieving success in devotional service. So this eagerness was demonstrated by Bilur Mangal Thakur, and he also expressed it in his book Krishna Karnamrita, and that is an example quoted where he says, I'm eagerly waiting to see that boy of Vrindavana whose bodily beauty is captivating the whole universe, whose eyes are always bounded by black eyebrows and expanded like lotus petals, and who is always eagerly glancing over his devotees, and therefore moving slightly here and there. His eyes are always moist, his lips are colored like copper, and through those lips there comes a sound vibration which drives one madder than a mad elephant. I want so much to see him at Vrindavan. So this is Bilur Mangal Thakur's prayers. You can see in the painting there, that is of beautiful painting of depicting Bilur Mangal Thakur's vision of Sri Krishna. Thank you. That was my part. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, this is Vaishnav Das. I'll be reading this two slides from here. Attachment to chanting holy names of Lord. So a devotee is addicted to constant chanting of the holy names, and he cannot stay idle without chanting the holy name of the Lord. An example given is Radharani. So one of the associates of Radharani said to Krishna about Radharani, "O Lord Govinda, the girl who is the daughter of King Rishabhanu is now shedding tears, and she is anxiously chanting your holy name, Krishna, Krishna." And another example is Haridas Thakur. He chanted 192 rounds of Mahamantra every day, even in his late in his life. And another example I can think of is Narada Muni. He always chants the holy names of the Lord. Next one is always eager to describe transcendental qualities of Krishna. A devotee is attached for chanting the glories of the Lord. Everywhere he goes, he always tries to spread the glories of the Lord. Sukadeva Goswami is an example. He preached Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj in 7 days straight without any water or food. And Krishna, Lord Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, and chapter 9 and verse number 9, he says, "Machchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha." The thoughts of my pure devotee dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Next one. Next slide. Okay. So very pleased to stay in a place where Krishna has his pastimes. A pure devotee of Lord Krishna resides in the districts of Mathura or Vrindavana. He visits all places where Krishna's pastimes were performed with the cowherd boys and Mother Yashoda. He circumambulates all these places and always feels transcendental pleasure. When he goes to Vrindavana, he will immediately feel separation from Krishna, who performed such nice activities when he was present there. Such attraction for remembering Krishna's activities is known as attachment for Krishna. It is said by Rupa Goswami that the attachment exhibited by few devotees for Krishna cannot possibly be perfected in the hearts of fruitive workers or mental speculators, because such attachment in pure Krishna consciousness is very rare and not possible to achieve even for many liberated persons. For a person who simply wants to have liberation and to merge into the impersonal Brahma Jyotir, attachment to Krishna is not possible to acquire. This attachment is very confidentially kept by Krishna and is bestowed only upon the pure devotees. The conclusion is that the transcendental attachment is so powerful that if such attachment is seen manifested, even in some common man, by the association of a pure devotee, it can bring one to the perfectional stage. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dhanat Pranam everyone, Jai Shri Prabhupada. So we're going to discuss about ecstatic symptoms in neophytes or non-devotees. So sometimes we see non-devotees may seem to exhibit signs of ecstasy. So how do we understand that? In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami writes that the attachment exhibited by pure devotees for Krishna cannot possibly be perfected in the hearts of fruitive workers or mental spectators. So even if those who adorously execute sadhana bhakti may not attain bhava, so what can be said of non-devotees? This attachment is very confidentially kept by Krishna, and it is bestowed only upon pure devotees. So even ordinary devotees cannot have such pure attachment to Krishna. So therefore, how is it possible for success to be achieved by persons whose hearts are contaminated by the actions and reactions of fruity activities, and who are entangled by various types of mental expectations? So genuine ecstatic symptoms are provided domain of advanced devotees with strong and exclusive attachment to Krishna. They can never appear in people attached to sense gratification or liberation. So when non-devotees or neophytes or non-devotees display emotions, that resemble the symptoms of bhava. So it is divided into two, which is called the Rathya Bhasa, a reflection of bhava. So there are two types of Rathya Bhasa, which one is Pratibimba, which is called as a reflective, and Chaya, which is called the shadow. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So in this slide, we are going to discuss about the reflector attachment, which is Pratibimba. Pratibimba means it's a reflection, like when the sun rays come on the mirror, it will reflect, right? So that is called Pratibimba. Or um, here Prabhupada gives example like the moon-like rays from hearts reflect on him, and by the influence of pure devotees, he may show some likeness of attachment. So Srila Prabhupada writes, sometimes it is found that a person actually attached to material enjoyment or salvation has a good fortune to associate with pure devotees while they are engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord. So devotional service is so intense that someone may execute devotional service with an ulterior motive for fruitive gain or liberation. In the association of advanced devotees, such person may experience symptoms that resemble ecstasy, because the genuine ecstasy of advanced devotees is reflecting upon the mirror of his heart. So the key here is the association. And can you go to the next slide? Yeah. And the second one is shadow attachment. So sometimes a person may execute devotional service out of social convention or curiosity, but the motive is not nearly as corrupt. Like in this, the practitioner, he will not have any ulterior motive. So such people may exhibit a slight resemblance of ecstatic symptoms, especially when they join kirtana or attend the festivals, visit the holy dham, or get the occasional association of saintly devotees. So Sri Prabhupada writes here that shadow attachment or para attachment can develop if one associates with a pure devotee or visits holy places like Vrindavana or Mathura. And if an ordinary man develops such attachment for Krishna and fortunately performs activities in the association of pure devotees, he can also rise to the platform of devotional service. So what is the difference between this Ratyabhasa and Chaya Ratyabhasa? So Pratibimba more intensely reflects Bhava. It is like an image reflected in a mirror. However, in the Chaya Ratyabhasa, the symptoms are not as clearly reflected. Rather, it is more like a shadow cast on the ground. So there is only a vague resemblance to the original object. So Srila Prabhupada describes here that shadow attachment or chayas as is para, like which is transcendental. Even though it is less intense, but the shadow attachment is better than reflective because the difference here is the practitioner does not have any ulterior motive. Next slide. Yeah. So how do we transform this Rathya Bhasa into genuine Bhava? The only way that one can transform his imitative emotions into genuine Bhava is by receiving the mercy of a pure devotee. This mercy is attained by service and blocked by offenses. So here we are discussing like the do's and don'ts. So the do's is like a service and don'ts is like do not offend. And devotee's power is the only cause of both semblances of ecstasy. If one serves devotees, his imitative attachment can be transformed into genuine attachment. And Srila Prabhupada explains, as attachments can be invoked by the association of pure devotees, in the same way, attachment can also be extinguished by offenses committed at the Lord's feet of pure devotees. So we have to be very careful, like not to offend any devotees. And the here Srila Prabhupada also explains the most offensive mentality is impersonalism. If we associate with an impersonalist, our devotional ecstasy will wane until it is extinguished. And the causeless bhava. If a person who apparently has undergone serious devotional practices suddenly manifests symptoms of ecstasy, we should not automatically assume that he is pretending or exhibiting one of the varieties of Ratya Bhasa. His ecstasy may be genuine. So it is to be understood that his status of devotional service was achieved in a former life. So here, like we are not distinguishing, like we're not judging anyone that if he's uh, if he's presenting all these symptoms that he's a pure devotee, and if he's not. So it's not like we are judging anyone here, but we're trying to understand like if someone demonstrate this, then how do we understand? So the key here is like he may have achieved this devotion from his former life. And the last slide, so attitude towards faults in devotees. So if a person on the platform of Bhava appears to have some fault, so how should we understand it? Srila Rupa Goswami explains that although Bhava has arisen, it has not yet completely destroyed all sinful reactions. So one should disregard such faults, understanding that the devotee will soon become completely perfect by the glorious force of his devotion. Yeah, thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation, good slide work. I also like the flow, even though you were handing off between one another. It was contiguous. Perhaps the only thing I would like you to have worked on more is the timing. I know when different people speak, it's difficult to control the timing. We had wanted to finish this within 15 minutes. It took a little over 30 minutes there, but I do understand that the chapter has a lot of material in it. So excellent job. Thank you. And with that, we'll hand it over to Group 4 for chapter 19.
Hare Krishna, dear devotee. Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. Hare Krishna, dear devotee. Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. And today our topic is Prema Bhakti from Nectar of Devotion, chapter 19. Sorry, Prabhuji. So definition of Prema. Prema is the developed stage of bhava. When one has a desire to love Krishna, their relationship becomes intensified. It is known as prema, pure love of Godhead. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 23.7, definition of prema given by Sri Rupa Goswami. Samanya Masri Nitas Santo Mamatva Ati Syankriti Bhavas Eva Sandra Atma Buddhai me prema nigadyate. When that bhava softens the heart completely, becomes endowed with a great feelings of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, love of Godhead, by learned scholar. And through characteristic point of view, Srila Prabhupada writes about this verse in Nectar of Devotion in Narad Panchanatra. It is clearly stated that when lust is transferred to the Supreme Lord and the concept of kinship is completely reposed in him, such as accepted as pure love of Godhead by great authorities like Bhismadev, Prahlad Maharaj, Narad Muni, and Uddhava. According to Bhismadev, love means reposing one's affection completely upon one person, withdrawing all affinities for any other person. Types of prema. There are two types of prema, Mahatmya Jnana and Kevala. So Mahatmya Jnana prema mixed with the knowledge of the Lord's majesty in Narad Pancha Ratra, it is said that if on account of profound veneration for the greatness of the Supreme Lord, one attain a great affection and steady love for the Lord, and they are assured to attain the 4 kinds of Vaishnava's liberation, which achieving same bodily features as the Lord, achieving same opulence as the Lord, dwelling on the planet where the Lord is residing, attaining eternal association with the Lord. Next is Kevla, unmixed and pure. Unalloyed devotional service is without any motive for professional benefit. This describes people who are blessed with natural attraction to the Lord. They worship the Lord. They worship Lord Krishna simply with love and devotion, rather than doing service for material gain. And attaining Prema Bhakti, devotional service. So one can attain Prema Bhakti by devotional service and out of causeless mercy of God. So one who engaged in regulative principles of devotional service, they become completely purified of all material contamination and develop an attachment and taste for devotional service. When this taste and attachment intensifies, it becomes love. So here describe, so there are 9 stages of devotional service, which is Sarvanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Asmaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. So when this taste and attachment intensified, it becomes love. Next. Attaining Prema Bhakti, out of causeless mercy of the Lord. So Prema is achieved by the extraordinary mercy of Krishna, a devotee who always associates with the Lord in ecstatic love. It is to be understood that such a position has been awarded by the Lord out of causeless mercy. So Gopi, an example of such extraordinary mercy is given in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.12.7, wherein Lord Krishna tells Uddhava that the Gopi in Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to achieve me, nor had they ever been to holy place of pilgrimage, nor did they devolute. Sorry, Prabhu. So nor did they devotedly executed any regulative principles, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my mercy association that they have attained the highest perfection of devotional service. Next slide. Experiencing Prema Bhakti. So one of the things a person experiences when they attain Prema Bhakti is ecstasy. So ecstatic love is born of the execution of regulative devotional service. A devotee in the course of executing the regulative principles of devotional service develops his natural Krishna consciousness, and being thus softened at heart, he chants and dances like a madman. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, 7.78 statement given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Dhari adhari te nari holam una mata hasi kandi nachi gai iche mare mata. While chanting the holy name of the Lord in pure ecstasy, I lose myself, and thus I laugh, cry, dance, and sing like a madman. Next. In Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 7.83, a statement given by Mahaprabhu's Guru Maharaj, Krishna name maha mantar e tasvabhava e japitar taro Krishna upajay bhava. It is the nature of the Krishna Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. Next is 9 stages of Bhakti. To attain pure love of Godhead is a process prescribed in scriptures, which is Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anartha Nivriti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, and Prema. So Shraddha, here devotee develops little faith in God, and Sadhu Sangha, they start association with pure devotee. Bhajan Kriya, where devotee perform devotional service. Anartha Nivriti, where all unwanted habits get removed. Nishtha, a devotee becomes steady in devotion practice. And Ruchi, at this stage, devotee develops a higher taste for devotional service. Asakti, at this stage, devotee get attached to devotional service. Bhava, at this stage, devotee experience love of Godhead. Prema, the devotee attain pure love of Godhead. Next. So difficulty in understanding Prema. It is difficult to understand Prema. In Narad Pancharatra, Lord Shiva therefore tells Mata Parvati, my dear Supreme Goddess, you may know from me that any person who has developed the ecstasy of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is always merged in transcendental bliss on account of this love cannot even perceive the material distress or happiness coming from the body or mind. So pure devotees are not attached to material happiness or distress. They are in transcendental prema all the time. So last, I think, statement from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, 7.76. Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam, Hare Ranam, eva kevalam, kalu nasteva, 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 gatir annatha. For spiritual progress in this age of Kali, there is no alternative, there is no alternative, there is no alternative to the holy name, the holy name, the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a key to attain Prema Bhakti. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dr. Mataji. Thank you. Your slides were really aesthetically beautiful. I like the color palette and the font selection. And your presentation was also very nice and to the point. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So with this, we come to the conclusion of the Nectar of Devotion. Next week, we'll take a break so that we get time to prepare for the exam. The format of the exam will be similar to what we had in the previous modules. You will get to have a selection of verses, 2 verses, each of 10 marks, and a selection of 16 questions, each of 5 marks. That gives us a total of 100. Whenever you're ready, send me the email. I will send you the question paper. So send me the email. I know Ravi Prabhu was doing that service earlier on, and he's unfortunately traveling right now. Well, not unfortunately, but he's traveling right now. Unfortunately for me, but then after the service. But you can send me the email, and I will go ahead and send you the question papers. And at this point, I'll pause and see if there is any questions or comments or discussions. I wanted to also thank Ram Tulsi Mataji for her work in creating the answer key. So she had requested devotees to review it and for accuracy. So I would recommend that 1 or more devotees take that service and make sure that it is accurate. So it basically helps tremendously in the preparation for the other devotees. So it's a nice and sweet service to do. Okay, so I'll pause here and see if there's any questions or comments. Yes, Prabhu, Yoga for the Soul.
Oh, sorry, this is Shaktiman Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, I have a question regarding the attitude towards faults in devotees. So when the person is on the platform of Baba, if he has done some fault, Srila Rupa Goswami says that although he has attained the stage of Baba, but he has not completely destroyed all sinful reactions. So how do we understand that? Like, because of the chanting, all these sinful reactions will be diminished, right? And whatever I heard from Maharaj is that if there is no sinful reactions, but if there is any attachment, that will be diminished. That Krishna will remove by doing that. But how do we understand that, Prabhu?
So, good question, Prabhu. Vishwanath Chakravarti Padi explains in Madhurikadamni that the destruction of anarthas is a gradual process. So, at the stage of anartha nivriti, there is a predominant destruction of anarthas. So, he gives the analogy saying that the city has been burnt. So when the city has been burned, the city ceases to exist, but yet the city is there. Somebody can still point to the city and say, this is the burnt remains of the city. Then as one advances, then by the stage of Ruchi Ashakti, the anarthas have further been eliminated. And he talks about, gives the analogy of a piece of cloth being torn. So the cloth is torn, the cloth does not exist, but still the remnants of the cloth are there. And then at the stage of Bhava, he says they're almost completely gone. But traces still remain. So because there are traces of anarthas, so anarthas should not be confused with sins. Like sins are more from the perspective of karma, that you basically break one of the rules of the Vedic injunction. You steal from somebody, you lie to somebody, you kill somebody, that accrues a sinful reaction. Anartha is not in the purview of karma. Anartha is you laugh at another devotee, there is no karmic reaction to that. But if the devotee takes offense, then anartha accrues. Vaishnava Aparadha accrues because of that. So it's a different track. So, so does anybody know of an example of a devotee at the stage of Bhava who still had some anarthas? Bhakti Vinod Prabhu?
Bharat Maharaj.
Bharat Maharaj, very good. So Bharat Maharaj, he's described as being, as in the 5th canto, 7th chapter, he's described as a Mahabhagavat. Right, so he described as a Mahabhagavat in the stage of Bhava. But then we see that he also acts in a way that that is a little bewildering. He gives up his devotional practices, gets attracted to deer, etc. And the acharyas explain, giving this example, that even at the stage of Bhava, there are traces of anartha. And that is why one should continuously be vigilant. And that, one of the reasons that Bharat Maharaj fell was because he gave up Vaishnava Sangha. And he was living all alone in solitude, but he was not ready for that. He still had traces of anartha. He was a king for a very long time, and he had this notion that I'm the protector. So that was that trace of anartha. And
Thank you, Prabhuji.
thank you. Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
Prabhu, can I ask one more question? This is regarding the exam. So there are like around 60 questions, right? And so how do we we need to prepare all 60 in all 18 chapters, or?
So there are so there are 16 questions that you will need to attempt out of a bank of questions, right? So there'll be typically about, I don't remember the number, but there'll be typically about between 30 and 35 questions, right? And you'll pick in them, and yes, they'll be distributed over the 19 chapters and the preface will be distributed over there. And as usual, they will be from the student handbook, the MIHE student handbook that's been given to you, and which Ram Tulsi Mataji has kindly, she has extracted the answers and put it over there. I noticed a chat that she's also requesting some other devotee or devotees to be able to validate the answers, so that way you can use it authoritatively. And also, for those who are attempting the NOD, you should have attempted the first 3 modules of the Bhagavad Gita.
Prabhu, and we also have to give the reference where writing the answers, like just we mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, we were referring from where the shlokas or where we took the answer from. So it's the same for Nectar of Devotion also?
Yeah, there are a little bit of marks that are kept aside for those devotees who give references. And the reason that's generally recommended in Bhakti Sastri is that we should develop this habit of speaking by reference. One of the big differences between, and you will notice it also, as one of the big differences between devotees in ISKCON and outside is that ISKCON devotees, they will always quote with respect to references. Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 5th verse, Krishna says this, right? You will very rarely hear them say that, I feel that Krishna says this, or my belief is that, whenever at least I hear that, my alerts go up, because I have not much faith in what another fallible person is thinking. But when the person says that in this chapter, this verse, Krishna says this, then even if the person does not know the chapter and verse, once somebody asks this to Prabhupada, that you give all these references, we don't know any of these references. And Prabhupada said, then know them. Well, firstly, he said, know them. And then secondly, he said that one should develop a habit so that you become true to yourself. You only speak when you know the reference there. Yeah. Rajna Prabhu?
Yes. So I would like to know, when are we planning to finish this entire course? Like initially I was told that it takes 1 year, but it's taking more than 1 year, right? It's not a problem. I'm just curious how long it's going to take.
So after this, we have one more module left, which contains the 2 books, NOD and NOI. I mean, sorry, Isopnisha and Nectar of Instruction. Our average duration of a module is 2 months.
Okay.
Right, but from mid-June to mid-July, I will be traveling. So we'll be on a break. So I have to see whether we can finish it in 6 weeks. They're 2 very small books. I mean, you've obviously read them, so both of them are small books. But then at the same time, I also want to do justice to them. I want to make sure that just to complete it in time, we don't get a chance to discuss it. So my sense is that we will probably resume a little bit towards the mid of July and end it by the end of July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ajit Krishna Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Prabhuji, quick question regarding the catch-up exams. Before attempting Nectar of Devotion, I think you said it's important or it's mandatory to finish the other exams and then sequentially move on to Nectar of Devotion.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And that was, I think, in the initial introduction to the course also.
Yeah.
We had established that at once, one of the requirements that we will proceed sequentially in the exams. Because if students jump back and forth in the exams, then one thing is that it breaks the sequence of the modules. We're doing the modules in a sequence for a reason. And the second is that it becomes difficult for me to keep track who has done what. So I would generally prefer that we go sequentially.
Makes sense, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Bhakti Vinod Prabhu?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. So regarding the reference, because NOD is summary study, we don't have verses listed out in the chapters. It's more, so how do we put the reference out there?
It's a good question. It depends on what the answer is. So there are some answers to questions that are like what are the 5 symptoms of bhakti? Right. So it's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Right. The other references sometimes will come from a verse that Prabhupada has quoted. Giving the chapter as a reference does not add a lot of value because you already have the chapters there. So that's something that I'm cognizant of. That if there is no easy reference, then the student will not be penalized for not giving a reference. Only in cases where there is an easy reference that is available, then there's an expectation.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And you'll know, when you look at the answer, you know if there's a reference or not.
Thank you.
Vamsi Gopal Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Maybe I missed it, but what would be the next one we will be covering, Prabhuji? Like, is it a nectar of instruction or Ishanupashad?
So we will first cover Isopnisha and then the nectar of instruction. So the pairing is that once again, so we did Bhagavad Gita, which was philosophy, and nectar of devotion, which is practice. Then we will do Isopnisha, which is philosophy, and nectar of instruction, which is practice. So we'll do it that way. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we will end here. Just as a reminder, next week we will not have a class. We will have a class the week after next, starting with Isopnisha. There will not be any group presentations at the time. I'll speak on the invocation and the philosophy of Isopnisha, and then we will break it up into groups for presentation. We'll take chunks of verses and present it. As you can see, as you will see in Isopnisha, the earlier verses, they have longer purports and they have more discussion material compared to the later mantras. Okay, so we'll end here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Ila Prabhupada ki jai. Hi, Gaur Premanand.